What's up, guys, and welcome to Gamescript. We're looking at Thursday night football between the New York Jets and the New England Patriots tonight. And we've got some injuries that should be pretty significant for how we build lineups tonight, and they may help us find some sneaky plays. We'll get into it right after this. What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Gamescript. I'm Simon Edwards, aka Pumacom with Heatseeker Sports, and we're going to break down this Thursday night football game between the New England Patriots and the New York Jets. We're looking at a 38.5-point total with the Jets as 6.5-point favorites. So it's going to be a slobber knocker tonight. Really low-scoring game. We've had these before. And in these types of games, we can build our lineups a little bit differently and get an edge on the field. And I have some injuries to go over, which I think are going to help us to find some sneakier plays on this slate. So make sure to hit that like button. Get me up to 30 likes. I'm looking for 30 likes to put out a shorter video later on. And make sure to hit that subscribe button because I'm looking for 1,000 subscribers. I only need about 140 left. And I'll put out some sort of like a special show once I get that 140 where we break down, maybe a little bit more in depth on the main slate or something like that. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Help me get to 1,000 subscribers. We're very close there. So let's dig into this game a little bit here. As I mentioned, we're looking at a 38.5-point total, which is always fun for building these showdown slates because it gives us opportunities to leave salary on the table. It gives us opportunities to fade higher owned guys in the captain that might have more defensive attention focused on them. The injuries that I'm looking at affect both teams. On the Jets side, they're missing Jermaine Johnson. He's out. So the Jets basically will have Hassan Reddick and Jermaine Johnson out in this one. So those are their two best pass rushers. And the Jets got rid of a lot of their pass rushers in the offseason to make room for Reddick. And now they find themselves in a pickle, basically, with the lack of pass rushing options there. But on the other side of the ball, the Patriots are basically missing their entire starting offensive line. We're looking at the starting left tackle is out, the starting left guard is out, and the right tackle is dealing with a wrist injury. And the center is out, I believe. So the only healthy person on that offensive line for the Patriots is the right guard. So that is going to kind of balance out where the Jets are going to be lacking on the pass rush. But I think the depth for the Jets is probably still stronger than that offensive line depth for the Patriots. So I'd give an edge there to the Jets. And on top of that, whatever the Jets are lacking in their pass rush, they can make up in the secondary with those, like those top cornerbacks that they have. So I'm not too worried about the, pass rush so much for the Jets, but it's going to give opportunity more for, I think, Rhamondre Stevenson. Also, advantage for Rhamondre is that CJ Mosley did not practice. He's their stud linebacker. He's about 50-50 to play tonight, so you want to keep track of that. But I would expect Brissett to be under siege throughout the night without that offensive line up against a potent defense. And I would expect him to, be targeting, again, the short areas of the field. And that would be Rhamondre getting a lot of targets, I would imagine. Let's take a look at what he got last week. 5 targets last week, 3 targets in week 1. I think we could project about 5 targets in this game. And, depending on how the Jets are able to compensate on that defense, he could be able to have a decent game with those points. We've seen the first couple weeks, he had 17 DraftKings points against Seattle. He had 24.6 against Cincinnati. Antonio Gibson did play a bigger role last week. He's coming back from an injury, so he started getting worked in a little bit more last week, and that took away from some of Stevenson's work. So Gibson could be an interesting play as well. But, Rhamondre is the guy I'm mainly interested on the Patriots side, just in general. I don't think that they're going to have very many weapons. I think Hunter Henry should be the guy that, maybe the Jets are focused in on, because the receivers on the Pats side, they don't really have much to work with. Looking at their most expensive receivers, like Pop Douglas down here at 6,300. Douglas, he was a pretty good slot receiver last year. This year, he has not done too much. He only had, 0 points last week, 3.2 the week prior to that. And as far as his matchup in the slot, so far in 2024, the Jets are only allowing 11.3 DraftKings points a game to slot receivers. And that's actually pretty good, considering the rest of the defense that the Jets have here. The advantages are going to be for the slot receivers, and that's a middling matchup. But the running backs have a really good matchup, because the Jets are allowing 24.3 DraftKings points a game to running back position. That's another reason why I like Rhamondre, on top of those injuries to the Jets that should help them out. But they also got the entire starting offensive line hurt for the Patriots, so that'll hurt him a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But keep that in mind, that among running backs, that's one of the best running backs out there, running back matchups out there for Rhamondre tonight. The problem is that, everybody knows that they're going to be relying on the running game, so the Jets could compensate there. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out, but keep that in mind with Rhamondre. So moving on to Breece Hall. Breece Hall also has a really good matchup against the Patriots. The Patriots gave up 21 DraftKings points a game to the position last season. This year, they've only given up 18.7 DraftKings points a game, but they faced the Bengals with Zach Moss and Chase Brown. And then last week, they faced the Seahawks, but Kenneth Walker, I believe, was out. Yeah, Kenneth Walker was out in that game, so it was Charbonnet. So they were facing a backup running back last week. So I would imagine that the Patriots are going to be closer to that middling matchup range for running backs. So Breece Hall is definitely in play. And the beauty of the Jets side of the ball on offense is that they have weapons in the passing and the running game. So the Patriots can't really focus in on one or the other. But I would imagine if they use that Belichick tactic of taking out the top weapon, they're going to focus in on Breece Hall. And I do think that they have the corners that are going to be able to kind of handle Garrett Wilson, or at least, keep him at bay a little bit. They did not do a good job against DK Metcalf last week, but I believe Gonzalez had him kept in check throughout the entire game up until a blown coverage towards the end of the game, and that allowed Metcalf to run for catch a 45-yard bomb for a touchdown. So I think Garrett Wilson has a little bit trickier matchup tonight than Breece Hall, although I do expect a lot more attention to be focused on Breece Hall probably. Garrett Wilson has gone off to a slow start, 12 DraftKings points in week 1, 10 in week 2. But I think in week 1, he had a 40% target rate, something along those lines. And last week, he had Ladarius Sneed on him, so he didn't get a lot of targets. He gets another tough matchup tonight with Gonzalez, who's been playing very well. And, the Pats defense in general is just pretty good. John Joseph, the other corner there. So I think it's going to be this low scoring total is justified considering the difficult matchups for all these studs, except for Stevenson. But Stevenson's dealing with all those injuries on the offensive line that are going to slow him down. And then on top of that, the Jets can put more attention on him because they don't have any receivers on the New England side that are going to be threatening to them. Moving down a little bit, we go to Hunter Henry, who's off to a hot start. He had 12 targets last week against Seattle, 8 receptions, ended up getting 21.9 DraftKings points. He's really the only weapon that they have in the passing realm that's any good, really. Jalen Polk is a pretty good player in college, but he's a rookie. They're expecting him to be their wide receiver 1 at some point, but he's still young. Let's take a look at him, and he's cheap. If we scroll down, we can see Jalen Polk down here at $6K in the captain. Let's move over to Flex and give you a better idea what his salary is. $4K for the salary on Jalen Polk. Hasn't really done too much. 3 targets last week, 1 target the week before that. But this guy has a pretty good pedigree, and I would expect him to break out at some point. But he's got to face like the Jets secondary tonight, and that's not good news for him. Douglas, I mentioned already. Looking down further, we see Gibson here. Gibson came in last week. He had 11 rushing attempts for 96 yards, 1 target for a 70-yard reception. That makes me hope that Breece Hall is not going to have as much target competition from Antonio Gibson, but we don't know how that's going to play out as he's getting healthier. But, Breece Hall has been significant in the passing game. If we look at him, as I see, he got 8 targets last week and 6 targets in week 1. So if you could pencil in about 5-6 targets for Breece Hall tonight, it could be a good situation for Breece Hall. Aaron Rodgers. Let's move on to quarterbacks here. Aaron Rodgers. He doesn't have the mobility that he had before that Achilles tear, and he's older, and he's been getting the ball out of his hands a lot faster. So he's been targeting the shorter areas of the field. He hasn't thrown many deep passes so far this season, but he's also missed a year of football, and he missed a decent amount of the like the preseason as well. So he's still getting acclimated to playing at the NFL speed, but don't be surprised to see him figure things out here. Last week he ended up getting 15 DraftKings points against Tennessee. He ended up with about 10 in week 1. Facing this New England secondary, he doesn't have a very good matchup, but he has his ability to get the ball out quick. Where New England is weakest against, as far as the pass goes, New England is weakest against slot receivers. And this season, they're allowing 25.8 DraftKings points a game to the slot. And that is where Allen Lazard runs 40% of his routes. So, given the circumstances, given that they're playing a decent defense, the Patriots like to run a lot of man coverage. They're an aggressive defense. I would not be surprised to see a lot of dump offs to Allen Lazard tonight, knowing the weakness in the Patriots secondary is the slot. And Lazard, we saw him in week 1 where we got burned with him against San Francisco, where he came out of nowhere for 27 DraftKings points. He ended up with 9 targets, 6 receptions for 89 yards in that game and 2 touchdowns. If Rodgers, you got a veteran quarterback, he's good at picking apart defenses. He's going to see probably the weakest spot on the field is against the slot receiver. And I think that's going to open things up for Allen Lazard to have a decent game. He's only 5,800 in the captain. He is 8,700. Which makes him a little bit interesting in the captain, like with a projected low-scoring game, because these are the type of games where you can get those random guys in captain. I believe the projected game total for the San Francisco game was pretty low too, and Lazard would have made a good captain in that one with almost zero ownership. I think he's under 5% owned this week. So it all depends on what kind of stomach you have for a play like that. Lazard throughout his career is very hit or miss, but he is Rodgers' guy, and Rodgers, basically forced the Jets to sign him, and he doesn't want to look like a fool. And Alan Lazard has a good matchup, and he is, Rodgers is very comfortable with him in this new offensive environment that he's playing in, and he gets the ball out quick, and the Patriots are an aggressive team. Now, that man coverage might benefit Garrett Wilson as well if Rodgers sees a few opportunities. If the defense decides to focus in a little bit more on Breece Hall, and that leaves Garrett Wilson a little bit more open in some plays, that could set him up for like a nice game if you get some of those deep balls thrown to him with single coverage. So Garrett Wilson is definitely in play, but he's just has a like a tough matchup. As far as the Patriots, we're looking at Jacoby Brissett, who has no offensive line, and he hasn't scored over 10 DraftKings points yet. So that makes it very difficult to start him against this elite defense. So Jacoby Brissett will probably not make it into many, if any, of my lineups tonight. I think that Mike Williams is interesting tonight. If the coverage is leaning towards Garrett Wilson, and Williams ran 50% of his routes in the slot in week 1. He came down a little bit in week 2 to balance things out. He ran majority of his routes from the right side of the field, which puts him on the season about 20% of his routes from the slot. Not the best situation for Williams, but he does have probably the easier cornerback matchup on the right side of the field. And he, I believe, was running about 80% of the routes, or 80% of dropbacks last week. So, makes Mike Williams interesting. He's getting back from his ACL injury, and he's getting more work in that passing game. So Mike Williams is in play at 6,200. I'm looking at Garrett Wilson ran 33% of his routes from the slot. So that's significant. That's almost as much as Alan Lazard. So that's what he's done so far this season. So Garrett Wilson, that slot matchup that I'm talking about might be good for Garrett Wilson. But he's probably going to have, shadow coverage from the top cornerbacks, and New England's going to be making an effort to take him out of the game. But Mike Williams could benefit from that. So keep Mike Williams in mind tonight. So it's all going to depend on what kind of game script you're focused on when you're building your lineups on, which of those guys makes sense. I think the Jets defense makes a lot of sense this week. They haven't really done too much. Like I said, they lost a lot of their pass rush in the offseason, but they've played San Francisco and Tennessee. They had an easier matchup against Tennessee. They ended up scoring 11 DraftKings points. San Francisco was a difficult matchup. They got blown out 19-32. So Jets D is in play against this weak New England offense. And, I don't know if they're going to be able to make many explosive plays. We're just basically hoping for, scoop and scores with the Jets defense, because I don't think that they're going to be testing those cornerbacks very much to give us those, interceptions. But I think it's going to be mainly sacks and hopefully fumbles tonight for the Jets D against a New England offense that's likely not to be trying to take many chances in the air. Braylon Allen got a lot of work last week, ended up with 7 rushing attempts for 33 yards and a touchdown. He added 2 receptions off of 4 targets for 23 yards and a touchdown. It's still light volume, but it just shows you that Breece Hall is not the only running back in this game on the Jets side. A little bit more difficult matchup, though, against the against the Patriots run D than it was last week against the Tennessee defense. So, not overly enthusiastic about Braylon Allen, but, he could be interesting. He's worth keeping in your player pool, basically. I like both kickers tonight. I like Zuerlein more because I think the Jets will have an easier time moving the ball. You look at Zuerlein, he had 6 DraftKings points last week and 1 DraftKings point in week 1, but I would not be surprised to see him get plenty of opportunities tonight in a low-scoring game with 2 tough defenses. Joey Sly also in play. If they're able to move the ball with Rhamondre and, maybe Hunter Henry taking advantage of CJ Mosley, if he ends up being out, then they could be in field position to kick field goals tonight, and that would set up Joey Sly. So Sly would be one of the few Patriots I'd be interested in. This Patriots defense, I'm not too interested there. I just think there's too many more weapons on the Jets offense than there are on the Patriots defense. But at the same time, I don't hate the play. I'm not gonna fade them. Let's see. Demario Douglas went over Polk. Gibson Osborne is another guy on the Patriots, just low volume guy. But I believe he's a starter. Osborne is, starting starting on the right side of the field. He doesn't have a good matchup there. And the Jets are, just too difficult a matchup for these guys in the secondary. Let's see. Conklin is interesting. Going back to what I was saying earlier about the susceptibility in the slot to these receivers, if it's not Allen Lazard, maybe Conklin steps up and has a decent game. He hasn't really done too much. He's only had 2 targets a game. But, don't be surprised if Conklin does something tonight. He's only 2,800. Let's see. I'm not really interested in Hooper, Gibson, Thornton. Yeah, I don't really see anyone else that I would be interested there. So let's build a lineup here. Let's start out. I'm going to build in the optimizer that I have here. I'm going to start out by building a optimal lineup so we can get an idea of what the field might be doing. And then that way we can kind of take that information and use it to our advantage with trying to figure out, like where we might want to fade guys and stuff like that. So let me build an optimal here. Make sure to hit that like button. Looking for those 30 likes to put out a shorter video later on. And make sure to subscribe to the channel. Help me get to 1,000 subscribers. I'm going to do a special show when I hit 1,000 subscribers, and we're only about 140 off of there. And you want to hit the subscribe button anyways because you want to sign up for alerts for when that shorter video comes out. Been on fire with the short videos. Was hitting at a really good clip. And then the last 2 that I put out for showdowns at least, missed on the Kyle Pitts call last week. In the show, if you watch the longer show, I had Darnell Mooney. I was on Mooney all day, and then I talked myself into Kyle Pitts instead, and I put Kyle Pitts in the short video, and of course, Mooney ended up going off. But I had the right idea with putting, targeting that Philly slot defense. And if you watch the lineups that were built in the actual longer show, then you probably did pretty well if you followed that advice. So let's look at the optimal here. We're looking at Breece Hall and the captain. I would expect him to be the highest owned captain tonight, given the circumstances. We got Tyler Conklin and Jalen Polk. As far as the other expensive guys, they're putting all the expensive Jets guys in. So they got Rodgers and they got Garrett Wilson. And then the other guy is Conklin, as I said, and then they add in a couple of Patriots. I don't even know if I want to put more than one Patriot. Okay, no, they have Braylon Allen, and then they got a Patriot as the final guy. I don't like this build. I think that Braylon Allen scored 2 touchdowns last week, but James Cook also scored 3 touchdowns last week off 6 touches or whatever it was. It was like something ridiculous. About halftime or whatever it was, where he only had 6 touches in the game. He scored 3 touchdowns. And of course, on the show for that one, I was saying that, James Cook, I wasn't going to be a lot of interest in because he never delivers on touchdowns. And then he scores 3 touchdowns. And that was all the work he got. But let's get rid of Allen here. I do like the Rodgers, Wilson, Conklin, and Breece. We got 4,600 remaining there. I'd be more apt to put in the Jets D, and that leaves us with 3,900. I think if you wanted someone on New England, you could put in Gibson in a situation like that. But really, just this build in general, I just don't like. I would take out Rodgers there. I'd put in Stevenson. And then if I'm left with 2,500, that leaves us in, Thornton area. What's Thornton's news? 31 of 68 snaps, so he only had a 50% snap rate. He was a highly touted receiver a couple years ago, though. Like, people were very high on him heading into the season, but he just didn't do anything in his rookie year. So, I mean, you see the constraints that this leaves us with. If we wanted to take Wilson out, like, I want to use that Jets D. Oh, I already got the Jets D in. I want to use a Jets kicker as well because I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. I think that secondary for New England is pretty strong. I think they'll be able to, to keep those receivers at bay a little bit. But this leaves us at least with an option of putting in Mike Williams as that final receiver. You could scroll down a little bit. You could put in Allen Lazard, thinking that, Lazard is going to get a lot of that slot work and take advantage of that matchup. You also got an option. You could put Braylon Allen in this build if you wanted to. You could put Joey Sly in there and have that double kicker build. Pop Douglas, Polk. Basically have a lot of options in play if you go this route. If you can find another $100, maybe you want to take out the Jets D. Maybe you want to go double kicker in this one. So let's put in Sly. That leaves you with 8,300. So you got an option of putting in Henry, Williams. That would leave you still with a 4-3 or a 4-2 build. I don't know if I want to go 4-3 on this build tonight. I just think the Patriots are going to be overwhelmed. But that's probably what everybody's thinking. Let me check and see what the projected builds are going to be for just the game in general tonight. Let's see. Looking at 35% are going to have 4-2 builds. 18% are going to have 5-1 builds, both in favor of the Jets. I mean, 30% of the field is going to be putting 3-3 builds. So that's surprising to me. I think that you can easily knock off 30% of the field just by going 4-2 or 5-1 towards the Jets. And that would put you in competition with about, like a little over 50% of the field. So you knock off 50% of the field just by having a Jets heavy build. If you wanted to go and do the compete with 20% of the field versus 80% of the field, the Jets, the Patriots 4-2 build would set you up there. But I just don't know the 4 Patriots that we put in. Let's mess around and see if we can do that though. Let's put in Stevenson in the captain. Let's put in Hall. Let's go with Hunter Henry. Let's go with the kicker. That's 3. So if I wanted to put in another guy, let's say we put in the kicker for the Jets too. So we got Hall and we got Zerline as the kickers. This is with 3,500. I mean, that puts you in a situation where you have options like Osborne, Gibson, Thornton, guys like that. But those are all very thin plays. I don't really like it. Let's take out Zerline. Let's put in the Patriots D. Let's say that they have a game against Rodgers. That sets you up. So you got like options like Polk, but that's a 5-1 build in that situation. Conklin would be more interesting to me in that situation. Conklin, picking up that slot work for the Jet side and taking advantage of that matchup. Let's clear this out. Let's put Stevenson back in though. Let's do something more Jets heavy here. Let's go with Breece Hall. Let's go with Zerline. Let's go with the Jets D. Let's go with Lazard based on that matchup. That's going to leave us with 4,900. And that leaves us with options like Joey Sly, Patriots D. You could play that low scoring game type of build where you have multiple kickers and defenses in there. You got Polk, you got Gibson, you got a lot of options there. So it's gonna be interesting to kind of figure out how to decipher through all these different cheap guys. It's going to be, I think, someone down in that cheap range that's going to be the decider in this matchup, this showdown slate. Rhamondre is only 12% owned versus like 18 plus for Garrett and Breece. So keep that in mind with Rhamondre. On top of him, probably being the primary guy that the Patriots are focusing on tonight. Let's clear this out. Let's do something with Lazard and the captain, just to show you guys what you can do with it. Lazard, we get Breece. Let's get Rhamondre and Wilson in there. Leaves us with 3,900 per guy if we wanted to get the kicker in there to prevent Reese from scoring those touchdowns. Let's get him in there. Leaves us with 2,900. We put in Conklin. These other guys that I mentioned. That to me is pretty solid build. If you wanted to take out Zerline and then put it in the Jets D, 2,500, that doesn't leave us in a very good spot as far as guys remaining. So probably not the best way to go. If you want to take out Gibson, maybe. If we took out Gibson, I don't want to put in. It doesn't really do anything for us there. So Gibson makes the most sense. But that's 3 pass catchers if you put in Conklin and Zerline with no Rodgers, which doesn't make a lot of sense. So maybe we take out Gibson, we put in Rodgers. Excuse me. And we got the Zerline. And then we got like 3,100. So it leaves us with Conklin again there. But that makes more sense with Rodgers in this lineup as well. If you wanted to do something with the kicker in the captain, or maybe we say the Jets D, they're under siege. Let's say the Jets D are somehow able to get, like a couple, like a touchdown and a bunch of sacks tonight. If you put Jets D in the captain, you can get Breece in there. You can get Stevenson in there. You can get Wilson in there. Let's put Zerline in there too, because we're going to need a reason why these skill position players aren't scoring those points. And then again, that leaves us with Conklin as an option. Don't hate that build, but you gotta, things got to go your way. You gotta run really good for these Jets defense plays to score in the captain. But that gives you an option there. Bunch of looks. And the thing is too with these captain plays, when you put the defense in the captain, everybody else is just building the same lineups that puts the Jets D in the captain. Let me give you an idea of what their ownership is. Jets D is about 3.5 projected captain ownership. So you're going to have 3.5% of the field that you're competing with, but they're all likely to have a very similar build to this. So you have to really try to think differently when you're doing a build with a defense in the captain. Like, you either want to leave a bunch of salary on the table, or maybe we swap out Wilson for Williams, and at least this was 7,500. And then maybe we put Lazard in there too, right? Or Braylon Allen. Braylon Allen could be another reason why Breece Hall's not in the captain, because he's poaching touchdowns, or Joey Sly, something like that. So that's how I would probably try to build with a Jets D, but you want to put in the Garrett Wilson lineup too, just to cover your bases, especially if you're in large field tournaments like that. So, just some directions there to go. Make sure to hit the like button. Looking for 30 likes so we can put out the shorter video later on. That'll trigger that short video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm looking for that 1,000 subscribers. I'm 140 off that. Let's do one with Mike Williams real quick. If you wanted to do Mike Williams lineup, Mike Williams, Breece Hall, Stevenson. So Hall and Stevenson, I think, are basically locks for me tonight. I think that they're just going to see the most volume out of anybody. Garrett Wilson is too, but he's got a tough matchup. But let's put him in this lineup too. Yeah, no, I don't like it with Wilson, with Williams in the captain. If we put Rodgers in there, Jets D, 2,100, doesn't work out as well as the Lazard lineup did. But if we want to put in Zerline instead, 2,500, same situation. Just it gets a little bit tricky when you go there. If you wanted to take out Breece, let's put in, since we got Rodgers in there, let's put in Wilson. Let's say that the Patriots defense is focused in on Breece, and they got some attention on Wilson, but Mike Williams is able to find his openings. So that leaves us with 41K. That puts us in Polk, Gibson, Conklin range. So I like that a little bit better. But, we're sacrificing Breece Hall, which should have a ton of ownership. His overall ownership is 78%. So if you want to play against 20% of the field versus 80% of the field, fading Breece Hall will get you there. And you can kind of play around with that. But I wouldn't fade him completely probably. But, you guys can do your own figuring out there. So if you take anything away from this, make sure to take away at least the nuggets. The slot receiver on the Jets side, whoever they target in the slots, are going to have the better matchup based on what the Patriots have done so far this year. Wideouts have, Patriots have been giving up about 18.7 DraftKings points a game to wideouts, which is like bad for the matchup for wideouts. So, they had DK Metcalf basically shut down last week until that blown coverage, but Jackson Smith and Jigba did pretty well against them as well. So, I think that Smith and Jigba is more of a slot guy. Let me check and see. That could be different this year, but I want to make sure to give you guys the right information. I haven't looked at the main slate yet, so I don't have. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to check out Seattle. Going to go with their snap position. Yeah, Smith and Jigba's run 83% of his routes in the slot. Let's go into that. Let's go into the main slate. I just want to check something. Let's see. Last week, Smith and Jigba had 26 DraftKings points against the Patriots. So a big chunk of that slot points that the Patriots are allowing came from Smith and Jigba. But let's check and see who the Patriots have week one. They had the Bengals. So let's see. I think that's Josephus. And he's on the Monday slate, so I can't really check that right through this. But yeah, so keep that in mind with the slot position. Allen Lazard is going to be interesting tonight, but also, Stevenson, He's going to be interesting, but the offensive line on the Pats side is decimated, but so are the defensive ends for the Jets. Mosley is questionable in that linebacker core, so that's going to help out Rhamondre in the passing game, and then also Hunter Henry. So Rhamondre has a bunch of stuff working for him this week, so don't fade him, and keep him in mind as a captain option at only 12% ownership. So, all right, guys, that's it for this week. I will see you again with the short video later on and the Sunday night slate coming out probably a little bit after main slate locks. So thanks, guys.